Greetings, everyone. Welcome. It is 6 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let's establish, please, that we have a quorum beginning with a roll call vote. Joe? Here. Corby? Here. John? Here. Meredith? Here. Christopher? Here. Juan Carlos? Here. And I am here as well. We do have a quorum. Corby, has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. To help ensure that we're centering our board work around our shared values and serving our students, we begin each of our board meetings by reading our district's equity framework and the Ho-Chunk land acknowledgement, which can be found at the top of the agenda. Christopher, would you please read those aloud for us this evening?
Yes. In the Verona Area School District, our mission is that each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. To meet this mission, the Verona Area School District will ensure that every individual has access to the educational, social, and emotional support they need to feel valued and affirmed in their unique identities and experiences. We acknowledge that inequities and power dynamics exist in our system such that some individuals, on the basis of their identities, face barriers to accessing the opportunities they need to experience success. In acknowledgement of such, the Verona Area School District is committed to disrupting these systems of inequity. And the Ho-Chunk land acknowledgement. There are currently 12 tribal nations who call Wisconsin home, with the Ho-Chunk Nation being the primary group living around Madison. No matter where you are in the state, you are on the ancestral land of tribal nations. As we begin our meeting, we honor the land upon which we stand.
Thank you. Board, if you haven't taken a deeper dive, just checking our agenda for the rest of this evening, and then I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as put forth.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Christopher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Juan Carlos. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as written, please signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda has been approved, and we'll shift over to the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today for our first meeting post the beginning of the school year, and we're off to a fantastic start. I'm going to take 30 seconds of your time, if it's okay, to really briefly, if she's watching, tell my wife happy anniversary. It's recorded. I said it. Happy anniversary. No, and then I think we got married on 9/9, so I wouldn't mess up a date by just having one number to deal with. So I think I'm all good. And, being married to a fellow educator, she's in a board meeting herself, so I don't know. She's probably not able to watch, but just wanted to put it out there. And it's been a great experience. I appreciate our board for letting me have 30 seconds to talk about it.
Happy anniversary to Sarah as well.
Thank you. So we want to start with the welcome back from our Wildcats. And I think many of you were able to either be at convocation or have been at our sites. The way I would express the start of the school year and just seeing those interactions between students and students and adults is just pure joy and happiness that resonated on the faces of our students. Some have said they have just grown so much. You see the same eyes and same faces, but their height could be 4 to 6 inches different. And I remember those days of buying school clothes for a month, and then you got to buy another set again. But it's just really an honor to be able to serve in our amazing district and be able to see the families that there were some tears of joy and there were some tears of happiness of being able to drop your student off here, and there were some tears of get out of my car. And it's just time to go back to school. But that's part of parenting itself. So we're really excited to have our scholars back and continue the educational journey. I do want to just be very transparent as we got our school year going. We society-wise, we were met with, I would say another school-based strategy around not around safety and security, but just the loss of life for students and the loss of life for our staff members and our colleagues in the state of Georgia. This is coming off of a very personal experience right next door with our neighbors from Mount Horeb. And while there's so much joy and happiness on the face of our students and so many things that we provide, we do understand and know and recognize that safety concerns continue to resonate around any school across our nation. And that is something we need to just continue to have serious discussions about and continue to think about how we can improve our already very tight and secure systems here. Is there the opportunity for another layer? And so I say that because I do know that, we send often updates of, how do we keep our exterior secure? How do we keep our interior secure? And we use that by just very tight practices about access to our buildings, doors, reporting, a security team that's in place and on our security team. I just want to make sure we give them a shout out. They do phenomenal work in working with our students and also ensuring that they take all the safety precautions that are necessary. And at the same time, and I think rightfully so, both in the sense of messaging from our community and some personal reflection as well, the added layer of can we take an additional step and add an additional layer of security for our students and safety for our students in the form of officer support in partnership with our police department needs to be addressed. And this needs to be part of our conversation and making sure that we're doing what's best to support our students, support our staff, and to make sure that as a parent myself and our families out there, that we can do a better job of sleeping at night, because we're all concerned about this national trend around violence, specifically gun violence, and specifically gun violence that goes after students, it goes after our children. As a parent, I just think about in the last 2 weeks, as many of you know, I have daughters on the UW-Whitewater campus, and I have daughters on the UW-Madison campus. UW-Whitewater had a gun violence murder 2 weeks ago, and shots fired a block from our kids' apartment downtown Madison this weekend. And I say that because I'm not ever going to give up hope and desire, but I think if you take on hope without action, then you're just kind of being naive, that we cannot sit and wait for societal norms to change if we have the opportunity to go deeper and figure out different ways to add layers of protection ourselves. And so I want us to bring us to a deeper conversation of what that partnership could look like with our law enforcement agencies. And I also want to say this because sometimes from a historical perspective, as compared to where we are now, there may be some misunderstandings around a partnership. And I will say this, and please make sure that it resonates. The Verona Area School District and this leadership team and our staff, as well as the leadership of the Verona Police Department, have a very solid, found and trusting relationship and partnership. We work hand in hand. There is no contentiousness between us whatsoever. We understand, the police department understands that strong schools build strong communities, and we understand that we cannot effectively protect our staff, students, and families without our police department. And so I just want to make that very, very, very clear. And so I wanted to clear up any misconceptions about that, because that, as far as my perspective, shall not and will not serve as a barrier into how we can think about moving forward as a collective organization, and some of the things that we need to explore. I also want to speak about the hidden trauma that actually shouldn't be hidden. And while there hasn't been a armed violent act on school property, you can't underestimate the amount of mental trauma just because of things that happen around our society and things that happen that we're inundated with it. And if you're on social media stream, if you're on the news or anything, there's just so much of it coming at you all the time. If you talk to our students, which we do often, and we pride ourselves on student voice, you ask them what their number one source of mental angst, they'll say school safety. And they've been very honest about that. And so for all those reasons, I think it is rational for us to have a deeper discussion around a partnership with the Verona Police Department that's more, and Fitchburg Police Department that's more sustained contract and has at least we need to start having the conversation of presence here in our buildings to support our staff and students. So yeah, I appreciate the board for giving me a space to speak, my truth about this and be able to talk about this. I appreciate our community for continuing to reach out and support and advocate and ask the right questions of why not? Why not us and why not now? And I just also want to give a shout out to VPD and specifically Chief Dressler, who's been a very good thought partner on what this could possibly look like. Ironically, I don't think he minds us saying that they're having a very similar conversation at this moment at their meeting about what this could possibly look like as well. Our meetings just happen to coincide at the same time, or else you probably will see me in their space or them in our space. I do have this request as we go in deeper though. I want to make sure that the current security assistants that are with our organization are still part of it, are represented, and make sure that this is not a replacement discussion. We have to perform with our security assistants. They're not just great human beings, they care deeply about our children and they enhance our safety. This conversation that I'm going to ask us to have together is about how do we take that additional step in the event of a lethal threat against our schools and position all of us to be better resource to and actually in essence save lives on behalf of our staff and students. So yeah, I appreciate you indulging me in this conversation. And I don't believe in things happening in coincidence. And so at the brief time that I get to look at a television, I'll watch football. And I wanted to watch Texas versus Michigan. And I was on a Texas guy, I'm gonna watch Texas football. And I always love to watch them come out of the tunnel. And in this time, they came out of the tunnel. I didn't look for the quarterback. I didn't look at what the coaches was doing. The first thing that caught my eye and made me say, this is time for us to have a deeper talk, is that some of 100 of the strongest athletes in our nation were surrounded by police to take the field, to come into the space. And it just, sometimes you just look at it a little differently and have a different perspective again, it's not a final solution, but if we can do one thing additionally extra to enhance safety, I just think that's the right conversation. All right. So thank you for indulging me. I'll pause at that time for any questions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And truthfully, board, with this being a space for discussion, I think it would be wonderful to hear any thoughts, questions, wonderings you all are having, as well as being seated at this table on behalf of the community and your own, perspectives on all of this, right? This is something we talked about. We are 7 with our own varied thoughts and perspectives about things. And if any of you feel compelled to share, I would love to hear any voices around the topic.
I appreciate that we are having the space to have this conversation. I appreciate calling out the security team, that this is not a replacement for the security team. I think over the years on the board as a district, we've looked to try and find different solutions, and I think the security team is a great piece of that. But I also agree it isn't the only piece. We need to be looking at how do we further ensure our students' safety. And I think the relationships that have developed between BPD and VASD are really, really valuable. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to revisit that conversation. And I think the security team, the work that they do is different in a lot of respects, but it is complementary to the work that an SRO do in the schools. So I feel like that's the best move for our kids if we can move forward that way.
Thank you.
I think one of the telling signs, and Dr. Clarity knows about this over the last few weeks, seeing parents who are also members of the law enforcement community wanting to be part of your parent advisory council to have a conversation about this. I mean, it's real. Someone said at the gym this morning, referencing Georgia, that it started again. And I said, it's never ended. It's one of those things that we have to deal with. And I think we're gonna hear a lot from our parents who are members of the law enforcement community about innovative ways to partner.
I think it can't be understated how important it is, the relationship building that's happened with Verona and Fitchburg Police, because, you know, I'm strongly in favor of this with SROs in the schools. But you read about where it's gone wrong in districts, and it's in districts where there's not a strong relationship between the police department and the schools. And maybe the police department doesn't buy into the model of learning and discipline that the school district is going for, which can actually contribute to a more unsafe day-to-day environment than if they weren't in the school. But I think what's happening here, and this isn't something that's recent, we've been talking about this for a little while now, is with that really strong relationship that's being built, and there's kind of buy-in from everybody about what we're all looking for. And it seems like we're on the same page with local law enforcement about what we're looking for in this role. And I think it's a very positive thing, and it can't be undersold.
Would just add that as a parent of a child going into middle school and going into orientation, really understanding what the new school was like, as parents, that was at the top of mind for us as we were engaged. We didn't know the school, so it's brand new to us. And I wanted to know, what are the security protocols? What happens? How the doors lock down? We had a conversation with our principal. So as I'm learning in this new role as well, I think one thing that we have to be cognizant of is the importance of mental health as well, in pairing with our, whether it's the police department of Fitchburg or Verona, as well as our resource staff that we do have, especially coming out of the pandemic right now. I think mental health is absolutely key pieces to this, and I think it needs to be integrated as a part of the wraparound of whatever additional pieces we bring on.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to elevate, is just the power that our district has created. And we're just not looking to be reactionary, right? That none of this is about being reactionary to a situation. It's proactive in all senses to hopefully prevent anything from even getting to this point, and bringing the layers to recognize, to your point, we can't pretend. We can't just hope nothing happens at our doorstep. But the fact that the tip line has been so effective, that it appears that within students and families, there is the culture of speaking up and being tuned in to things that we hear around the community and schools among students. I mean, just to elevate gratitude and the fact that our school community has made that just a way of being, to complement these places of students having adults that are paying attention, that everyone has adults that care and are taking note of how students show up each day. I mean, none of this to me feels like it's gonna have any impact if that's not where we're also concentrating. We've done so much, your team has done so much with that, and our staff that show up every day. The security assistants being human connection, right? And just all of that is, to me, foundational of why these extra pieces, to your point, Joe, make sense now, right? That there's this whole collective of understanding of where we are. And so bringing someone on feels so different. I mean, I can't remember the year, but I was a fairly young teacher at the high school. We had an SRO, I mean, that was early 2000s. And I was not involved in leadership. I don't want to speak ill of the partnerships that happened, but it just felt like, yeah, you just put a police officer to school because we had Columbine happen. I'm sure it was not that willy-nilly, but at the same time, I know from having been a staff at the time, it was not this deliberate way that we talk about safety, mental health, taking care of humans, and thinking about how to be proactive and just reactive.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I was gonna say, I echo that. I mean, solving these problems takes a multifaceted approach. There's never one silver bullet. It's not SROs are the one thing that are gonna solve all our problems. It's not. Whatever it is that we put out there, it's a conjunction and collaboration of pulling together the right resources and supporting kids and families in the right way. to deal with mental health issues, to create environments where people can speak up if they need to. They're having a bad day or just having a rough life. And having people like the security officers to talk to, right? To open up that gateway to speak and let them share what they're going through. It's having, obviously SROs can help, but I just think it's important to, like you highlighted, it's a multifaceted approach. This is an extra layer that's gonna add on to all the hard work we've been doing to this point to keep our kids safe, right? The physical and the emotional support.
And I think I agree with just about everything everyone said. And I think it's important to point out that the reason for that is that this is something we've thought about and talked about a lot, and not always in these public meetings. The work has been happening, quietly behind the scenes. I know for the duration of time you're here, because frankly, we haven't always had those relationships. And our students haven't always had those relationships with the security team. We didn't have a security team necessarily when we first started out. And so, I agree that the relationships are absolutely crucial, and those that have been built with the security team have done wonders for reducing just the day-to-day incidences that happen in the schools. And they continue to do wonders because they've built those relationships. I think we need to take a second, while this conversation is happening now in the shadow of the events that have happened in Georgia and continue to happen all over the country. This isn't like something where, we're just like, oh yes, we need a school resource officer now. No. This is a relationship that the admin team, Dr. Clary in particular, have worked very hard to build with the police departments, with our schools, and over years. And so this is not like a new thing that we're taking up. And so it's important to kind of recognize that work and that those trusting relationships that are now fertile ground for these sorts of partnerships have been built over a period of time. And to be honest, when I first came on the board, it didn't seem like that was a likely thing. And so that we're in this position now really makes me happy, because safety is a spectrum of things. There is no one answer to it. There are all these things that have to be clicking together. And, having those relationships in the community with the police department, with the city governments, and the whole team kind of working together around things like that is so crucial. So yeah, I think if it looks like we're all kind of on the same page, it's because we've been working on this and thinking about it. And a lot of that is a testament to the admin team and to Dr. Clarity and building these relationships. And that should be put out there as well. Thank you, John.
Any other perspectives, thoughts that any other board members want to surface?
When we are looking at bringing, SROs or having that discussion, I guess we need to see what kind of, what are we looking just at the high school? Are we looking at high school and middle school? Is it kind of a TBD discussion in progress?
Yeah, one of the things that we need to work with, I think in this case, Verona Police Department, is their staffing plan as well, and understanding. And I think that's sometimes a misnomer, that it's not as simple as hiring an SRO. The police department has to go up, put a person through the academy, get a candidate trained, and make sure that happens. So I would see it starting with the singular, and then possibly expanding there, but at least getting that first step where, and I think in that case, we should look at a district-wide type, district model with still housed at a location with a district-wide model. So we doing the supports, doing the risk assessments, doing all those things. I think what's so important is having that singular point of contact that knows our buildings and knows our students. And instead of, because right now, again, I'm so thankful for the partnership. Sometimes the time of day can determine who you're working with in a situation where they're all going to do their best. I think just having that one or two, wherever the number gets to, or three, that determines. But I don't want to, I'm gonna try not to say an exact number, because I don't want to put the agency in like where they're trying to staff right now and do that. So I think it's looking at starting with the first contract and then the expansion process from there.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Because there could be a long lead time due to what's required to hire a school resource officer. are there any kind of interim
Mhm.
solutions or measures you can put in place while that lead time runs its role?
Yeah, there's a liaison model that we had talked about that would put into the spaces more quicker than the permanent type solution. Again, I want to be very thoughtful of not painting our partners in a corner where all of a sudden they have to make a budget decision because we got too far ahead of ourselves. So, but we did talk about in the meantime, what could a short-term solution to the longer term look like, and that liaison model of having someone in that space. It may not be the permanent SRO, but at least will get us started.
I would just add as well that whatever that partnership looks like, that I think our educational equities framework needs to be the foundation of that.
Correct.
Of course, because I think with our history that can talk recent history, but making sure that any police and security is centered there. And we're looking at supporting the resources that are needed for all students.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's where the partnership has grown in a significant way, is that we have this mutual understanding of police as support for safety and security in partnership and not policing. It's not an expectation of this position or positions being the behavior specialist and that's not their role. They're part of the bigger, broader community for support for those higher level significant accidents. And that's why I also spoke to the importance of keeping our security assistants and keeping our admin team the way it is, because those day-to-day types of behaviors are not for policing. That's not for, and I don't think they have, and they're not desired for that to happen as well. So that's just a kind of a mutual understanding that we've just articulated with each other about what that could look like.
I just have one clarification,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll get at this.
Yeah.
We're talking about bringing an SRO, into the schools, but I think maybe if people aren't in the schools all the time, they don't recognize the partnership that exists in the schools already with our police department. I mean, if there's an incident or if there's a tip, we're working very closely with DPD.
Yes, as recently, Thursday night into Friday, both agencies were our partners in being able to ensure that while that did not turn out to be any type of credible threat whatsoever, we had to be sure, because I think there's an expectation of our community to use a board. If I'm going to send a message out that says we are secure and this is not a credible threat, then I better know.
Yeah.
And part of that, knowing that, is partnering with law enforcement to have that second lens, that second eye on just to be sure.
So we've talked a lot about the kind of the relationship between the district and our, area police departments. That's really been enhanced in the past several years. But I think it's also because we've been working very closely with them in a lot of different areas. So this isn't suddenly now we'll be working with police.
Correct.
We have been working with police. They're at events. They were at our convocation.
They're at a convocation,
So they're at, sporting events. They're in the schools when there's an incident. If there's an issue that has a heightened awareness, you're working very, very closely with them, throughout the process. So this isn't going from 0 to 60. This is like going from 55 to 60.
Probably, I would say, Chad, I don't know the number, I want to be accurate, we're probably twice a week.
We're in touch with.
Yeah.
Either Pittsburgh or Verona, easily.
Yeah. And it's really a lot of the proactive. We're getting ready to do a training. We're getting ready to, can you come do a security check? Come check our doors. Or let's problem solve a situation, or we have a risk assessment we want to, so those happen easily a couple times a week.
When there's been the crisis response
Correct.
practices, that's been in conjunction with, they've been involved in those. So it's really been a true collaboration that is not just being restarted. This is something that I think our parents can feel good about, the fact that this is a strong relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's really, I think a relationship is solid when you can take critical feedback from each other without feeling criticized. Mm-hmm. And we have those conversations about, hey, let's just have some conversation. But it's done with such a level of respect for each other, and respect for the profession, and respect for wanting to do what's right for our community, that, that, I think those are, I mean, when you're talking about safety and safety, those are hard conversations. And also we're continuing to bring our equity framework to life. We continue to talk about the difference that we don't want to be a ticket agency. We don't want to be a building that does tickets because when there's a teachable moment. So we're still a space of education, and those conversations have been really well received and reciprocated. That I don't see that as a high desire from their end as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out the relationship that our students have with security.
Yeah.
Because I know our security team, a lot of them very well, and I've known them for years before they even became part of our district. And they are mentors.
Mm-hmm.
They supply those bare necessities to some of our kids who may have or experience food insecurities. And I think in situations where I've seen SROs not work, including back home where I'm from in Los Angeles, it's because there was no group of people or person in the middle that had a relationship with the students other than the teachers, parents. There was no security. It was the SRO kids. And right there, we experienced disproportionately targeting of Black and brown students because of that. Whereas in this situation, we have our security team who has a relationship with a lot of our kids, period. And then you have law enforcement who has a relationship with security. So I think we're really going at this the right way.
And I think there's also a desire for, we will be heavily involved in talking about who this person is, because we want that relationship to be solid as well. You have in an educational setting, you have to, even while you're enacting law and law enforcement, in an educational environment, you still have to be an educator, no matter what your role is. And that's the type of person we want in our space, is willing to have those educational conversations. And again, I can't speak more about, the things you're still on the screen, the people that you see on your screen. They're the kind of people that I would want my kids to have conversations with, because they have great life experience and they genuinely care about our youth in appropriate ways.
One last thing I would like to say is if there is enhancement or changes that are significant, that we have an understanding and analysis not only of the benefit, but what any unintended consequences there may be, whether it's from families, but also our students that are being directly impacted by those changes.
Yeah.
Whether it's triggering, we don't want addition of security layers to add emotional harm or any triggering things. Rather, we want them to feel safe.
Correct.
Right? So that deep analysis, both of the benefits and potential negative.
Absolutely. Correct.
So thank you for the discussion. I appreciate just hearing everyone's voice, insights, the things you were able to offer us, Dr. Clarity. So board, if it's all right, just in noticing the topics for public comment, I know we have an agenda that was approved, but based on just this discussion, I'm wondering if we can now shift public comment and amend the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to now surface public comment as the next thing. I would take a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Right, I guess, Laura, you get to pick who that second was. Christopher. All those in favor of amending the agenda to surface public comment next, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so I believe I have 4, and I'm going to go in the order I think that I was told to do. Public comment, we typically allot about 3 minutes per person. I will keep a time, and I'll just try to give you a subtle symbol. I won't cut you off. I'll certainly let you finish kind of the thought that you're on. Feel free to come and have a seat up at the end of the table if that's comfortable to you. So I have Nicole Austin as our first person to speak today. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for coming.
I debated if I need to come up after that great conversation, because you're spot on with what I was hoping to hear tonight. I'm Nicole Austin. I'm a BASD staff member. I'm a building south, based mostly at Sugar Creek. I'm a mom of 3 Verona students. I attended Verona schools, kindergarten through 12th grade myself. So did my husband. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about concerns I've had, well, since I've been a mom, and actually since I was teaching first grade at Sugar Creek long ago. And this kind of stuff has been around for, I mean, it's, the year I went to high school was Columbine. So it's just a topic you don't want to talk about, but I'm really glad you guys are having this conversation, and I'm glad a lot of you are on the same page and taking it so seriously. I'm kind of just going to share some stats that I had found this week, just trying to put my mind into something productive instead of worry, which probably made it worse, but school shootings have jumped 124% between the 2020-21 school year and the next school year, 2021-2022. The year of Sandy Hook, there were 26 school shootings. In 2021 and 2022 school year, there were 327. That is just shocking. Since the year 2000, just after Columbine, there have been 1,375 shootings at public and private elementary and secondary schools. These stats are they're just disgusting. Since the shooting at Columbine, more than 338,000 students have experienced gun violence at school. And an estimated 4.6 million children live in a home where at least one gun is kept loaded and unlocked. Now, I come from a hunting family, my dad, brother, husband, but not everybody has responsible gun ownership in this country. So it's like Dr. Clardy was saying, we have to come up with ways as a district to protect kids, because not everybody thinks like my family or some other families. Children of color are far more likely to experience campus gun violence. It's more than twice as much for Hispanic students and 3 times as much for Black students. Somebody mentioned the mental illness factor. 1 in 6 U.S. youth age 6 to 17 and 1 in 5 adults are experiencing a mental health disorder in our country. And 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14. So a lot of depressing facts. But moving on, there's an undeniable need for an armed resource officer in Verona. I just think of those statistics as human lives. You need to think of them as a kindergarten neighbor, your teacher friend at Badger Ridge, our high school dance team. You need to think of it as people and not numbers. Our schools in Verona have grown so much since I was a kid. They're the size of some small towns. Sugar Creek has almost 700 kids. That doesn't even include staff. Our high school is, I don't know the number, 1,700. And to not have protection at these buildings, or at least just wandering around kind of between the campuses, we wouldn't do that to a small town. So why are we doing that to our students in these buildings? I mentioned as a Sugar Creek teacher, I was teaching first grade on December 14th when Sandy Hook happened. Sorry. The date still haunts me. There were 20 first graders killed that day. I am begging you guys to do something. None of those parents, teachers, or kids knew that day was coming, and had an SRO been at least nearby, it might have bought them some time. And my understanding from tonight and from previous discussions with other people, this was not your guys' decision to take SROs away. It was years ago, and I'm just hoping you guys reverse that and right. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks.
Second this evening, I have Abby Peternell. Abby, thank you.
I'm Abby Peternell. I'm Nicole's sister. We're not. I also went to Verona. I have 3 Verona students here. And I'm glad you read the mission statement. I was gonna reread that, but I saw you didn't. But as a parent, I have questioned if our kids are getting the emotional support and physical protection that they need in school at that high level, based on the trauma that we've all kind of lived through in the past years. Is it healthy for students to experience the traumas of today's world around them and not feel we are doing everything possible to protect them? Does that help them succeed in the classroom? Are our children getting an equitable experience compared to other districts in terms of having peace of mind and being able to focus completely on doing their best in the classroom? Our students, staff, and parents should not have to feel fearful of what might happen today at school. How can staff effectively educate students? And how can students reach their full potential when they have this in the back of their mind? They deserve this added layer of security of an SRO to keep the promises of our mission statements. I agree community policing is so important. I challenge you to meet with other surrounding communities that have them in place. I believe Middleton and Elmhorn does. These officers, like we've talked about, have built relationships with all the students and provide them with exposure and a positive experience with law enforcement at a young age. Understandably, some children and families have trauma related to police interactions, and it's of great importance to hire officers who want to build foundational relationships, and that starts even at the elementary level. I appreciate the current security team at our schools, our district court staff hold, and I agree, I don't think that should change. However, I do feel strongly that an SRO acts as a deterrent to those who want to cause harm. During an active shooter situation, seconds and minutes are the difference between mass casualties and minimal or none. I just can't help but think, had what happened in Georgia this past week taken place in our schools, I feel like it maybe would have been a different day. Should someone who is armed find a way to enter our schools, I'm just wondering how our unarmed security would protect our kids and staff's lives. I'm asking that you begin the process of reinstating SROs on our multiple campuses with the help of the Verona Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Next up, Caitlin Burovsky, am I saying that correctly?
I don't feel like I have as much to say because you really did hit a lot of it, but I have 2 kids at Sugar Creek and my husband's a teacher and he's coaching our kids right now, so he asked me to come in his place, but it is a fear of his every day. Is something gonna happen at school? And I work every day and I don't have that fear that I'm not gonna get shot going to school and I don't have 20 children to protect in my classroom, or my kids aren't in the building. Do I take 20 kids or do I go to my kids? And that's something I don't think that we should have to live with. I am mad at our government for allowing this, but I don't believe that our government's gonna change fast enough. But I do believe in the district and our leadership team to make those changes. And I urge that you guys have had these discussions for a long time. We've built these relationships, but to take action now and do whatever we can. I'm just gonna call out one thing that I know I've noticed in a couple other people. You can walk into Sugar Creek and get in the main area until you get the camera to actually get into the building, but you're in the vestibule, you're in an open area where there's glass doors, it's pretty easy if you wave at someone's gonna let you in, especially if you smile at them, they don't always know. There are gaps in our security today that I think we can take action. If it means writing grants, if it means doing something that the community can help with. I know these 3 ladies would help, I would, but I know we would go door to door, whatever we need to do to help, because what if tomorrow someone does come to our school? Are we ready? And if we look at other districts, what do they regret not doing? Can we learn from that? And that's really my biggest ask. And I am thankful for you guys for having this conversation, and it means a lot to all of us to protect our kids, to protect our staff. I want my husband to come home every day. I want my kids to be protected. So just thank you. And if there's anything, ask the community for help, because we're here to support you. We voted for you guys to be here. We want to support and make sure the kids are safe.
Thank you.
Hopefully you saved a couple seconds on that.
We're just fine, I appreciate it. And then Brianna Colston? Or Brianna, I'm sorry, please correct me if I.
No, you're good. Thanks for the opportunity. So I have 2 girls in school. I'm a new middle schooler and then a 4th grader. And something that's terrifying is to get that email that there was a active threat of gun violence heading into middle school. You're already nervous sending your kid to a middle school, and then to have to go in and be transparent with her, and I let her make the decision. I said, you can choose to stay home if you don't feel safe, or you can go to school. And that is terrifying as a parent and as a child. My child should be deciding if they are gonna have hot lunch or cold lunch, not if it's worth going to school to risk her life. And it really, I'm here tonight because I feel passionate about this, and I need to not just sit at home and feel passionate. I need to express it. And I will say, I'm so thankful to hear your discussion, to know that this is, I think you were talking, Joe, this is years in the making, that you've been working on cultivating this. And I understand that it's from mental to physical, it's building that relationship. And I appreciate the work that your team has done to get us to the point that we can just add on this extra layer. It's sad that it has to happen, but it's important that we take that step. And I also appreciate the discussion of, there's probably a long lead time in order to do this. So I just encourage the team to sort of think through, like, is there sort of interim thing we can do? So that way we're not just sitting and we are protecting ourselves as we sort of work through this new normal. Thanks for that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for the time for public comment. We appreciate you making the time and space to join us. Hey, thanks, board, for doing that rearranging. I think that was important to just highlight all of the discussion. Any further comments? I'll be turning it back to you, Dr. Clarity. Okay.
All right, I'd like to invite our Deputy Superintendent, Chad Weezy, for our budget update.
And our public comment, folks,
And Pete.
please enjoy the rest of the meeting or not. So we always encourage, stay as long as you, right, yeah, now we shift to budget, and so yes, we appreciate your time once again, thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Greetings.
It feels like on occasion I do get put in the position of attempting to make a transition from what is a super serious topic. Not that the budget isn't, but certainly like to echo what I heard from some of our community members. Thank you guys for that discussion. As a bit of a segue when it comes to the budget, if we did head in the direction of some type of shared funding model, that's what is fairly typical when it comes to an SRO arrangement with a local police department. We would keep the board in the loop on that, similar to any other budget add. And the board would probably get a couple of times that we would ask for either feedback or your flat out approval when it came to, if this eventually came to fruition. So if there was a shared funding model of some sort, we've got a budget tonight. This is the budget we're asking the board to send to the annual meeting. And this is the one that's going to be published with a hyperlink in the paper. This is the one that will be on our website ahead of the annual meeting. But as a reminder, this is our best guess in time. This is the budget that we want to have open discussion about 2 weeks from now. And our budget is actually not finalized until the end of October. And even at the end of October, if we decided any staffing, including a shared partnership model with the Verona Police Department came to fruition, we would go through a budget amendment process just like we have in the past, because it is the board's budget in the end. And I think it actually would likely even end up on the board's consent agenda for us having additional staffing that would go through the same process all of you normally would approve. So I wanted to put that out there. Yeah, Mary?
I just have a quick question. Typically, an SRO is an employee of the police department, but the shared compensation is a pretty standard arrangement.
Yep.
Is that okay? But I just wanted to make sure that it's still a staff member, it's of DPD or.
It is, yeah. So the main spot, the board would be able to really kind of weigh in on and kind of give, I think, their final stamp would be that we would actually ask you to amend the budget to sign off on the funds that would be necessary for that partnership. You are correct that it's still a full employee of the Verona Police Department, and they would just be housed here. I think some of the things that we would work through with a contract would be the district's partnership with hiring, maybe some training that would come along in terms of restorative practices and knowledge around our, our progressive discipline model, all of other things. But in the end, it would be, us sending a check to them on an annual basis to help split some of the, likely split some of the funds related to that expense.
Which really just highlights the partnership between the two entities, so it's really great. Thank you.
I had a question about the, in the event that we do hire a temporary SRO via liaison, how does that look from a funding?
Yeah, at least the initial conversations, and I think this is what actually Chief Dresser is going to talk to with his finance committee. We had at least seeded the conversation around, and we could be asked to pitch in on that as well. Something along the lines of the district paying for 2 hours a day of a day shift police officer. Verona PD kicks in another 2 hours, and all of a sudden we kind of have a halftime daytime police officer that's coming in and speaking with classes, doing much more regular visits to our schools. Would be the first call in the event that we had threat assessment to make, those types of things. So we wouldn't necessarily have someone stationed at our school, but we would have kind of a one-stop person that would be in contact as kind of that intermediate step that I mentioned. Okay, I'm glad we got any other questions. Okay, so you have seen this a number of times. I did want to, before we get into a few of the nuts and bolts relative to our budget book and annual meeting, give a huge shout out to Pete and Michael Account, who are kind of the brains and the technical piece behind this document. And then our communications team, primarily Marcy and Karen, who put the finishing touches on a document, quite frankly, we are proud of. We have continued to try to make sure that this thing improves on an annual basis. And I do believe this is probably our best effort to share our overall budget with the community on an annual basis. And just wanted to thank you guys for all the work that went into putting this finished document together. Really hard to tell. People, we have no choice. We are a continuous improvement environment, and we have no choice. We've got 365 to get back to something better for next year. So outcomes for this, and the board has seen this a number of times, so I will certainly pause if you have questions, but we'll go through this in relatively short order. We're going to remind the board of the budget goals that are embedded in this document and the related key components. We're going to look ahead to some key dates. Pete and I are making a recommendation, along with Dr. Clarity, that the board considers approving this budget as presented. And again, this will be the document that will be open for discussion at the budget hearing and the related annual meeting, where we have the agenda for the annual meeting in this document. And then we've got a little bit of time to get some more actual numbers put together to pass the final budget in October. So the big ticket things that we wanted to accomplish in this budget were as follows. We're going to try to explain how we got to little to no tax impact on an existing property owner in a very high inflation environment, again, up until the board and community, roughly about that tonight, and then again at the annual meeting. Our staff compensation is already embedded in here. The board approved the raise related to CPI already, and it's in this budget. The land purchase is in this budget, and most of that will come out of the 24-25 budget. Pete has set aside the necessary money for us to close on the properties that the board gave us permission to do so. We continue to have a debt management strategy. Pete and I are actually going to build that out a little bit more for the annual meeting, because we think it's important for the public to understand what we're doing when it comes to debt management and our eye on the future for capital expenditures. We have limited staffing increase built into the budget, and that is the folks we have teaching and working in our schools this year, and we continue to align our results policies with the money we're putting towards our annual budget on an annual basis. quick summary, this is really the big number that ends up in the newspaper in terms of what's going to happen with our overall school levy. You can see last year, our levy went up 8.6%. This upcoming year, it's 4.9%. And we will explain in detail in the next couple of slides how we believe we're covering that with both net new construction and the school levy tax credit. Here's our best guess right now with where the mill rate will end up. And these are conservative numbers again. I do believe by the time we get to October, we will be below 1099, but we need to get equalized property value in, and we need to get our third party account numbers in, and we got to get aid in the books before we get to October. But we believe our mill rate will be below 11 for the first time, I believe, in a couple of decades, which is good. And a reminder to the board, a lower mill rate doesn't always mean lower taxes. If your your equalized property value goes up at a greater percent than the mill rate is going down, you will see an increase in taxes. And that certainly there's a possibility of that happening. By the time we get to October last year, Fitchburg was hit particularly hard, where they carried a little bit more of the equalized property value burden because of the work that the Department of Revenue did and really the home sale prices that were happening in Fitchburg at the time. But our taxing rate in terms of the property you own has continued to go down now over the last 4 years. You can see that on that chart. Here's the piece I was mentioning about us encouraging the school board to take advantage of the school levy tax credit. Our best estimate for this upcoming year is the state of Wisconsin will provide really municipalities with an additional $1 million that will offset the levy that we would be passing on to the municipalities to pass tax dollars around when it comes to tax time to the tune of about $1 million. And that number last year was, I believe, $2.5–3 million. And Pete detailed, I think it's just interesting. We've said this again. I think John made a statement about this at last year's budget, that the state of Wisconsin decided, our lawmakers decided to put $590 million of tax money towards property tax relief related to helping support our schools. And they only actually provided $543 million that would be money to aid actually running our school districts. So they did more when it came to tax relief than they did actually providing resources to run school districts. And we believe our district's in the position to take advantage of that money on the tax bill side, not on the revenue side, to run our school district. Here's the relatively rough math, but Pete and I believe both that we are very close to being in the right spot. We're recommending 4.9% when in terms of our levy being increased. We know right now that Verona in particular had over 5% net new construction. The taxpayers next year, 5% of them did not exist the previous year. And Fitchburg somewhere in the middle twos, 5.3, which was one of the highest ones in the state in terms of net new construction. And we believe that $1 million equates to 1.28% of the school levy credit, and feel comfortable recommending to the board a mill rate of 10.99 that would cast around our existing taxpayers to roughly the same property taxes as we had the year before. And there will be ebbs and flows. I do believe there'll be people who have paid less property taxes this upcoming year than they did the year before. A lot of people that paid a little bit more. Some key dates that are also embedded in this budget book. We've got third Friday count coming up on September 20th. That's our pupil count that we'll end up submitting to DPI. That's all related to what we get in aid. We've got the annual meeting coming up on September 23rd. Pete, when do you finally get aid numbers? Joe, we met with you, and that edit did not make the final cut. October 15th is when we get final aid numbers and final equalized property value numbers. And then we'll ask the board to approve the final budget on October 21st. That is about it for our budget presentation. We are on to answer any big or micro questions that the board might have. I know you've seen this a bunch.
You may not have anything to add on this, and I know we're not yet to third Friday count, but anecdotally, do we have any idea if we're going to be trending higher or lower now that we have actual students in the class?
Yeah, I believe we're trending to either flat or potentially a few less students in our school district. And that is a result of us continuing to put a cap on open enrollment.
A few less than what we budgeted for, or a few less than much?
Both. At least right now, but a lot changes in those first 3 months. Which is, we are in an excellent spot. Our school district has stable and growing enrollment, and we continue to have the tool of open enrollment at our disposal in the event that we wanted to open the spigot up again for more students. But having a growing tax base with a stable and increasing student population is quite rare. And we are in a fortunate spot to have lots of ways to manage our budget on an annual basis.
Eventually, that 5.3 net new construction is going to have kids living.
100%. Yep. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
Jen, we're encouraging you to call that vote later.
Thank you.
Again, thanks to Pete for all his work. We will be back in action
Yeah.
2 weeks from now for the big budget hearing and annual meeting.
So, that's all right. I didn't catch this either. So Chad, Pete, if you want to wait. So we've been trying to be better about when a board vote is attached to part of shared presentation, that we move that and connect them. And I didn't catch that for this item. If you all are okay, again, with an amendment, if we just kind of rearrange, we're not really amending, we're just rearranging. If we could just go straight to that board vote right now, as long as it's fresh in our minds. Any additional questions, discussion that would be helpful before we move to? Okay, so the recommended vote, is there a motion to approve the 24-25 preliminary annual budget as presented?
So,
Corby, I know, right? Is there a second?
second.
Joe, thank you. All those in favor of approving the 24-25 preliminary annual budget as presented signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We'll see you again in 2 weeks
Thanks,
at
everyone.
5 p.m., which I will remind everyone we get to that point as well, so early start. Thanks, board. And then we'll just stay within superintendent's report for just a bit more.
Right. Excited to bring Dan and Jason to the table. You staying up there? Yeah, the big chairs.
Is it May 3rd?
All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Hi.
You still have the clicker there?
Yeah, I got the clicker. I'll pass this to Jason in 2 seconds. If the board wasn't aware, one of the things that happened with the turning of the new school year in July, I am now responsible for Jason and our instructional technology team. And it's been great to start to forge that partnership in a little more deliberate way. Certainly his whole world in terms of instruction hasn't changed a bit, but now I get to be involved in some of the technical aspects of running instructional technology. We are excited to bring Dan to the board table tonight.
Hi, Dan.
I shared this with Dan when I said, the board should meet you. I said, we've got what I would consider to be, in a good way, an antsy fourth-year superintendent whose mind wanders on occasion because he's starting to figure out this job. And Dr. Clarity made a list of people, if they won the lottery and left the school district, we would be up a creek without a paddle. Dan made the big one. That's how important Dan is to our school district. Dan's our network engineer, and we could not do this work any day without him. All the things that are seamless right now, Dan knows the guts of how all this comes to life. So this is certainly a project that's right up his alley. I'm going to turn this over to, and I'm here to answer any questions related to the budget, but turn this over to Jason and Dan to talk to you about an infrastructure project that we're kind of just dipping a toe into right now.
All right, so what we're going to talk to you about today is the district-wide fiber project proposal. With this, we're going to be throwing a bunch of things at you, but we want to just make sure we first talk about where we currently are as a school district when it comes to our internet connectivity. There's going to be a lot of verbiage, terms, and acronyms, so we want to make sure we kind of go over those and spend a little time on those. Explain the recommendations that we have and why, and then kind of have that discussion about what our next steps would be. So, as I said, we have a slew of terms and acronyms that we're going to use throughout the presentation. MRC is just monthly recurring costs. So when looking at, is this going to be saving us money? Is it going to be cost us more in the long run? We use that term MRC. Muffin, although it is a tasty treat, it is, for this presentation, the Metropolitan Unified Fiber Network. We're going to be talking obviously about fiber networks. Redundancy is going to be a term that we talk about a lot. E-rate, which is a government program that we utilize in different ways within the technology department. Dark fiber, which are privately owned fiber lines, and then ISP, which is internet service provider.
Great, I'll jump in. So just going to go through a very quick rundown of our current design and what we hope to transition to. So in the notes, our current network is a very traditional network. It's called a spoken hub. So all the schools are connected as the spokes, single fiber connection back to the district office building. And the district office building has the internet that goes out through our ISP, WISNet.
And Dan, I'm going to ask a naive question.
Sure.
Explain in a technical, a little bit, I guess, less technical term.
Yeah.
What is fiber?
Sure.
And where is it? Is it above ground? Is it underground?
Great question.
In the clouds?
So fiber is, a type of connection that uses light to transmit data. It's the fastest method to transmit versus copper, which is typically most telephone companies use. So the fiber connection is typically buried underground. It is the most stable kind of, and I think rated a very long term in terms of age. So that's kind of our reliance on connecting all the schools. And we can achieve, theoretically, we could swap out hardware, maintain that fiber. As the hardware on the ends get better design, you can, keep sending faster throughput. So that's our current design. It's just a very flat, very simple design. It has worked well, but obviously it's a single point of failure. So if at minimum a school has a fiber cut, that school is down. If at worst the district office was cut, then the district is totally down. So,
And how do cuts usually happen in your experience?
well, any type of construction, any type of road work or things like that. Unrelated, but slightly, like just even a couple of weeks ago, the HR department, which is offsite, got a report that they no longer were connecting, and just saw that when I drove past, there was a bunch of vehicles with, looks like they were digging new things and they cut the fiber. So with any construction, there's always that risk.
And if you remember all the construction that was happening on Lacey Road last year, something that probably was hidden to most was we had a fiber cut in the summer. Thankfully, though, they were able to repair it pretty quickly, and also that there were no students and most staff were not there either. So, but accidents do happen with stuff like that, but it's still the fastest and the best way to have it, just underground as opposed to obviously above ground, as Dan said, the kind of the old copper one.
And as Dan's working through what we're recommending, kind of future state would be in our school district. I guess I just asked the board to consider the importance of functioning internet to our school district. Our phones, obviously all of our data, all of our classroom materials now are stored in the cloud via the internet. In some regards, the internet is, in my opinion, just as important as heat and lights for us having a high functioning school day. And for us to be down any number of days would be catastrophic. We would lose significant student learning if we had one of the things Dan's kind of talking about.
So yeah, we can, the next page is the proposal that we're looking at for providing diversity with our internet and within the district network. So we, and I think it'll be covered in later slides, but we're working with 3 phases. And really the first 2 phases of this proposed fiber construction is gonna lay the groundwork for that 3rd phase. So the first phase is working with Muffin. They are a consortium of different institutions, school districts, the county, the cities, Madison. All these entities own dark fiber. They have their own fiber. And so as a consortium, this group is able to trade or negotiate using each other's fiber. So one area that is in phase 1 is to join Muffin and have the agreement that we can then use them as our second internet connection. And as part of that agreement, we would have 7 years of internet as the service through them, as part of that consortium. The second phase then is inside the district. You know, we want to move away from that spoke and hub network. We want to have the diversity and redundancy built in. And really it's that triangle part of the district office, high school, Glacier Edge, and Savannah Oaks, providing the build out of new construction of fiber that the district would own. It's not going to be 100% because if you'll notice, you know, some of our existing fiber, the Badger Ridge, I think that's incorrect, Sugar Creek, Country View, and Stoner Prairie, they're on existing single point fiber that is connecting to either district office or to Savannah Oaks. You know, it's not going to be 100%, but this proposal gets us a lot further along. So the idea is that high school, the district office, Savannah Oaks, the district office. And one of the main changes is Glacier Edge currently is coming to district office. We're going to move that to the high school in Savannah Oaks. That provides us with quite a bit of resiliency. So, you know, if the district office and high school were cut, we can take the alternate path of going through Savannah Oaks to Glacier to high school.
And then that's essentially, for layman's terms, this is a detour for internet traffic.
Correct. Ultimately, you know, like you said, yeah.
We can route it a different way,
That's
right, than we normally would.
right, exactly.
And if the detour, if we don't build a new road for that detour and that fiber's cut, we are down until the fiber's repaired.
Yeah, we have a stalled highway.
Yep.
We're not, we're just sitting, waiting. Yeah, that's the plan. So that leads to phase 3, which is, you know, and working with the agreement with Muffin, you know, right now, the second internet would come still to the district office. Obviously, that's still a single point of failure. If the district office is still down, we have 2 internet connections coming in, but that's not a great location. So we would probably work with Muffin to rehome that internet to a logical choice would be the high school. And that's where that left side proposed connection would be.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to be strategic. The high school obviously has our highest population of students as well. But it also does, with joining Muffin, there, you know, you can obviously see the different organizations that utilize them. And so there's a lot of possibilities in the future as well that could open with us joining Muffin. And then obviously, as Dan said, that 3rd phase of relocating kind of our headquarters, if you will, to the high school.
I think you said this, so I just want to make sure I completely understand. So when you route it from the connection from Savannah Oaks to Stoner, which is literally a football field away, how do the gigs drop that much? They go from 10 to 1?
So most of our schools right now are 1 gigabit. The only connection that really utilizes the full 10 gigabit is high school to district office, and then district office to the internet. But most of our other schools are just at the 1 gig. Is that the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I just saw it on the triangle on the bottom. So it goes 10G, 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 then from Savannah Oaks to Stoner.
Right.
It goes back to 1.
Right. We would maintain the 1 gig as, you know, a baseline. But obviously we don't want, we would prefer, of course, not to have that 10 gig cut between the district office and high school.
Yeah.
But if there was an issue like that, we would reroute and it would be a tenth of the speed, but, it would still allow us to get out to the internet.
Well, it's the same speed that they're working with now anyway, which is approximately 1 gig.
And for the entire district, what would you say on
Usually we're probably 2.5 gigs.
the
Okay.
entire district?
And probably the majority of that traffic is high school.
Got it.
Just in the elementary or middle are, they're not gonna be, using, saturating the full 1 gigabit.
Okay, thank you.
So, for layman explanation, and I'm gonna totally this from my husband because he's in IT. The main internet, if that is cut and you've got this redundancy, how are you alerted to that so that you can repair it? Just because I don't know how that works.
Right, so we work with WisNet, that's our ISP. Ultimately, they have built-in redundancies themselves. There are our ISP, they're like our Charter or our, Verizon, they get us. They would ultimately notify us if there was, connectivity issues.
Okay.
Yeah, so we rely on them quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, we get emails as well. And when we found out about the situation at HR, we'll get
Yeah.
emails when things are down too, just not so much, hey, the internet's down, but hey, something's up with this site. So it's kind of a thing for us to, all right, let's check this out.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
Okay.
All of our controls for heating and cooling are tied to the internet. Phones sync. Jason's phone blows up when we lose the internet in a matter of seconds.
Even under this redundancy, you can still receive that same communication. Okay.
And then I
Double check
think,
it.
Dan, that we would lean on you, probably in partnership, potentially with WisNet and or Muffin, to kind of be the genie behind the curtain and reroute traffic in a different direction, right?
Yeah, it's definitely having this type of setup is gonna introduce complexity and we'll have to have additional hardware. And, the hope is that with these additional lines, we're gonna have hardware that will be able to determine, oh, I can't get to this connection.
Got it.
Will it auto route? That's the working, that's what I'm gonna have to work on.
I have a question that is gonna reveal how little I know about this, but I assume that when we talk about participating in this fiber network, that means that others who participate in the network get access to our fiber as well?
Great question, yeah.
Are there any data security implications to that?
As far as I know, these are physical strands of fiber that they would, if there was a kind of a trading process of, they would get physically the fiber. It would not typically go through our network. It's literally, they would get the fiber connection that they want to use. And they would use their equipment.
So if we really were starting to geek out, we like to call it strands of glass. Let's pretend there's a bundle of that at one time the school district paid to bury fiber in the ground. And we only needed 7 pieces of glass to run the fiber that we were burying, but we might bury a bundle of 30. So we had dark fiber on 23 remaining pieces of glass. And really what we're doing with Muffin is saying, we've got 23 pieces we're not using. We'll trade you, we'll let you use 3 of those because we're not using them and you give us something in return. So the data is not traveling on the same piece of glass, right, Dan?
Right. I mean, that's typically, right, they don't want to go through our network.
Right.
They just want to be able to use those roads, if you will. We'll have ours. Yeah, and part of this project is we're going to bury more than we need because the cost of fiber itself is not the major cost. It's actually the construction and digging.
And we got something to barter into the future.
Correct.
So basically, there's low risk of hacking.
Not related to being on the Madison, or on the Muffin. Certainly, that is a nonstop worry of Jason and Dan. Would be some type of attack, but would not be related to this partnership.
Yeah, like if we're connected, like if we happen to be connected to, let's just say another school district that's neighboring, that's also part of Muffin, and they get hit, we would not be hit by, just because we utilize that same run of fiber. So.
As we kind of talk about in the future adding more square footage to the district. Does this change at all our plans on how we would set up the fiber running to any buildings that we have?
I actually think it gives us more flexibility into the future, depending on where our school went. And I think into the future, as we expand sites, it would be our goal to have redundant internet connections moving forward. So yeah, if anything, it gives us more flexibility.
So just to go over summary of costs, as Dan stated, it's really what you're paying for is not the fiber, it's for the construction. So we have a breakdown here of kind of those three runs with the estimated mileage, the project after E-rate. So we're going to utilize the term E-rate. It's something that we're able to go and apply for through the government for different projects. And if they are approved, depending on the school district, will determine the amount that you get back. So we've got the numbers here on this page with everything if we were to receive that with E-rate. And then obviously you can see the MRC, the years to recoup, and then the savings at 25 years. One thing I want to kind of highlight that's coming on the next slide, the reason we have 25 years there is because fiber is rated to last typically at least 25 years. Most of the time, it's 40 to 60 years, but you kind of want to be a little bit more conservative just in case. So this would be the cost savings to the district based on what we are paying for internet after 25 years. And you do see the one Glacier Ridge to high school at savings at 25 years is actually negative $571. That's because that one line would take 25.1 years to recoup. So, after 1 month after that 25th year, we will actually start saving money with that line as well. But as you can see between those other two, just from those, that's 168,000 if the fiber starts to, I guess, degrade at the earliest that most are rated.
And Dan and Jason, can you explain where we're getting the cost savings from?
Yeah, so currently we lease fiber to the three schools, the high school, Glacier Edge, and Savannah Hills. So by owning our own fiber and basically saying we can, we don't have to pay that lease cost, then that's where the savings would come in.
I guess I'll add a little bit to what Jason kind of went through on this slide. One, that third column over, project after E-rate, we believe the federal government would be in for half of the construction costs. So if we didn't have them, we'd have a $1.2 million project on our hands. And there is a payback that our bills for leasing that fiber would go down once we own it. I typically wouldn't bring, or this team would bring to the board, something with a 25-year payback. That's not super business. The added piece to this is we have increased reliability related to our network. And this would possibly be worth a worthwhile project if there was no cost savings involved at all. If I could tell the board, we can guarantee or virtually guarantee that our connection to many of our buildings now is rock solid and we don't have to worry about it coming.
We can also make money by lending these dark fibers.
I mean, there is that opportunity, I think.
That's not assumed in this.
Right. I think if we join Muffin, it'd be kind of the negotiation of trading.
Okay.
If we wanted to look, if there was a chance or opportunity to say we need fiber to a new location.
Yeah, it allows us to come to the table to barter, where without being a part of Muffin, you're just left out.
You're kind of on your own.
Yeah, an example might be actually related, I think, with Joe's question. If there was fiber already buried to a new elementary school site that we didn't own, but that was part of Muffin, and we had dark cable that someone else in Muffin wanted access to, there could be a trade there. That's actually the whole premise of the kind of unified fiber network, is we're all in this together, and that happens actually quite commonly if folks need a different route to get somewhere that there's already fiber in the ground.
Got it. Yeah, Muffin is, the existing members are like the UW, Madison School District, the surrounding school districts. So
Yeah,
more ability to Yeah,
So it's more ability to barter.
right, because of the proximity, we don't have to, try to dig more fiber if we don't need to.
Makes sense, thanks.
Are we the only entity or organization that uses or has access to our data? Or are there other third parties or vendors that we interact with that have access to our data?
Well, I mean, in terms of like district data, that's our own, if business service or HR, that's with them. I mean, obviously, we do have companies for the HVAC system or things that, if there was a support request, they would have access into to work on whatever specific things that the vendor.
But no transfer of any.
We don't typically, do that, right? Sure.
So just to kind of quickly summarize, obviously with to recoup costs, those three lines that we mentioned before, leveraging the federal E-rate project to take about 50% off that. We have used E-rate in the past for dark fiber construction, and from talking with other school districts that have done it as well for larger projects and had that approved, we do feel fairly confident that it would be approved and we get that 50%, and that would be something we would know prior to construction. So it's not a, you're in and then you find out you didn't qualify and now you're just stuck with a big check at the end. And then as I said, we put, that 25-year, they're guaranteed to last that much, but typically, people will rate them from 40 to 60. It's more of a conservative with that 25-year. And as we said, just to be safe, we calculated the savings at the 25-year lifespan. Obviously, as Chad, talked about, that's just kind of a bonus to this is the cost savings, where the big thing is just obviously having that redundancy in place. Just because we got lucky, like I said, last year when that one happened on Lacey Road, but even that was down for a few hours. They knew it happened and they got right to it. But depending on where it's at, how bad it's cut, it could take hours, it could take days, depending on things, so.
And just a quick question or a follow-up, and I've talked about this a little bit with Chad. My understanding, we're using an actual E-rate consultant, someone who only does E-rate.
Yes.
So when we say we're pretty confident, it's because it's someone who is an expert in E-rate.
Yeah, it's not us filling out the E-rate. Yeah, well worth the money. I mean, the whole process can be, it's a lot of paperwork, making sure you're filling everything out correctly. So we have a consultant that does all that, because we already utilize E-rate already for like our wireless systems throughout the district as well.
Correct.
So funding proposal, as we said, plan on utilizing that E-rate for that 50%. As we said, we're fairly confident that we'd be able to utilize the program for this. And then my tech budget, we are hopefully expecting $731,000 and some change reimbursement for a recent Chromebook purchase. Hopefully we'll hear some news about that in the near future, and we would hopefully be able to utilize this to pay that portion of the construction, and then plus obviously what we would get with E-rate.
And that reimbursement's from a grant?
It's from a fund, a government fund. Yeah.
So is it fair to say that budget or that item is basically saying that it would almost be self-funded within the tech? So really, part of this discussion or onward, you're not necessarily coming to us to say, we need this $600,000.
Exactly.
Right, that this is kind of self-existing within the tech.
I didn't want, this is incredibly time-consuming and technical work, and I did not want Dan and Jason to go any further until the board had an update. That's what I told Dr.
Yeah.
Eventually, you will have to sign off on $600,000 of essentially construction to get this project going. But we didn't want the board to be caught out of the blue as we bring this presentation and say we've teed up this RFP. And that's really what the next slide is here. This could take a couple of summers for us to get through, but we wanted to make sure the board was comfortable with that, even though it is in the end coming out of Jason's tech budget, which has a nice pot of money because of the work he did to get federal reimbursement for the Chromebooks.
So we just, here we have a breakdown of the phases. Phase one is basically kind of look at it as what we have to do in order to be accepted into Muffin, which would cost us around $40,000. And this is basically us building a fiber post, what's the term I was, yeah, a fiber post, a hub, if you will, that then Muffin would get a part of it, and that would then obviously get us our membership dues, if you will, and internet for those 7 years for free. That is around a $40,000 cost, and that is not E-ratable, but that would be something that we would hopefully do sooner than later, if we're able to this fall if possible. And this just gets us in with Muffin, which has a lot of benefits regardless of everything else. And phase two.
Yeah, phase two is, like we said, it's slated for the summer 2025, where we would do the internal district-owned fiber rollout.
And as Dan stated before, that phase three is that relocating of kind of our headquarters, if you will, from district office over to the high school. And as the timing, as Chad said, this is something that could take multiple summers, depending on, timing, how long the construction would take, the bidding process, all of that. But these are, the timing itself is tentative right now, but this is what we're hoping that it would happen. And next steps, we're in the process of finalizing our contract with Muffin. And then with that phase one, having that RFP out there for design and construction of that small piece, we would then update you on before anything happens with phase two. And then obviously there was that with the RFP and everything ready to go to kind of show everything. And then obviously pending board approval, that last part. Any questions?
I appreciate just having more of an understanding of how, the inner workings of the internet machine of the district. And similarly, my spouse also works in IT, and I just found myself kind of sitting back and just enjoying the learning opportunity. So thank you both for being here to give us kind of that full context.
Which is this full context, I still don't actually understand.
It's all right. I'm happy I got to talk as long as I did about it. My wife told me to stop. So, you lost me a few minutes ago.
I do want muffins now.
And John, did Leonard say, is it really glass that we're talking about?
No,
Like
no,
glass
I was saying, I was recalling the senator from Arizona that got made fun of for saying the internet is a series of tubes. And I was sitting here thinking, the internet really is a series of tubes. That old guy was right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
All right, so following my own, just making sure we're moving through the agenda. So we already took board action in terms of that piece. We've obviously had public comment. So moving on to board updates, anything just OE8 in terms of communications, anyone else? Some general board updates, if y'all don't mind. I'd like to surface something that I learned about Corby and his wife Regina. They were nominated and voted to receive the United Nations Global Citizen Award this year because of the work they've done and continue to do addressing health and educational equity both locally and globally. Congratulations. And alongside, you are also traveling to Washington, D.C. on Thursday because you also got an invitation, a direct invitation from the White House to also come and have conversation around those same pieces at the White House this coming weekend, right?
Yes.
So if you're comfortable sharing anything else about your work, Regina's work, just anything, I wanted to just elevate the congratulations to you both for just, yeah, amazing work day to day, and then to be recognized in such a way. Super exciting.
And we were totally not expecting any of it, which makes it even more acknowledging or special to us. We wake up every day and we're like, what are we gonna do today to impact the lives of mainly children who didn't have the opportunities, chances that we did, or we do now, I should say. So it's, we're very grateful. the United Nations said they had been following our work for about a year. And then Dr. Rose apparently was sending them information about the work we had been doing in the community and globally, and that's where it came from. And the White House was just out of the blue last 2 weeks ago. Dr. Jill Biden and President Biden asked to have brunch and discuss some of those topics and celebrate Black excellence. So, yeah, just.
We get an update after.
I know, right?
Yes.
Is it? Because
And I'm excited we could call a little spotlight to this because I know the both of you don't do the work you do because you want to be called out
No.
and get awards.
No.
And so exciting though that through channels and because the work speaks as it does, that this has been elevated to such a place for you both.
Yes, and if you know any Rotarians, look in the latest issue of the Rotary magazine. There is a wonderful article about Regina in there and the work she's done overseas addressing educational equity. It's beautifully written, so definitely check that out.
So expect another copy of the equity framework to be in the White House.
Can you take one with you?
I will take it with her, and I'll remind Dr. Jill Biden that she was at Glacier Ridge.
Correct.
Right. Well, congratulations again for being,
Thank you.
and we do look forward to updates.
Yeah,
So
Congratulations,
exciting.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, we are to the superintendent consent agenda. Please making sure that you've looked that over. Any questions on anything in the superintendent consent agenda? Hearing none, the superintendent's consent agenda is approved as presented. And then moving on to the board consent agenda, similarly, making sure you've taken a peek. Any questions that you have there? Hearing none, the board's consent agenda is also approved. And again, just a reminder for future agenda items that on the 23rd, we are starting at 5. So the annual budget hearing is from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. prior to our regularly scheduled board meeting. So just making sure your calendars reflect that earlier start so we can honor all the work of our budget team and get things official with lots of motions and seconds and all those things. All right. And then moving to, I'll take a motion to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically addressing the compensation of a certified staff member or members. Is there a motion? Thanks, John. Is there a second? Second by Christopher. All those in favor of shifting to closed session, please signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are officially in closed session. We'll make sure Lori